So now, kind of bringing everything together that you learned in Chapter 8, you're asked to find the zeros for these quadratic functions. And notice it's not saying find the real zeros or the number of zeros. I mean, some of these could be real or non-real. List the solutions in numerical order. Round the solutions to 2 decimal places if needed. And if the equation only has one solution, write none for the second solution. They have some problems that say the same thing in your homework too. So let's look at these. Now, here it's just saying find the zeros, which is what you do when you solve a quadratic equation anyway. Usually you set it equal to 0 and then you use the quadratic formula. So same thing here. If you do this, first one, your A, B, and C values are right here. This is what you would get when you use the quadratic formula. Notice how the discriminant part, the B squared minus 4AC, becomes 0. That's why you end up with only one solution, 12 over 4, which is 3. So you have 3 and you have no second solution. For B, here's A, here's B, here's C. Putting those values into the quadratic formula, you end up with a perfect square underneath here. It ends up being rational. It could be irrational, doesn't matter, so you don't have to round so much. 144 plus 180 square rooted is 18. And so negative 12 plus 18 over 10 is going to give you 6 over 10. Negative 12 minus 18 over 10 is going to give you negative 30 over 10. This becomes 0.6, 3/5, whichever way you want to write it. This becomes negative 3. I'm going to use negative 3 here and 0.6 here because it does say round to 2 decimal places. It only goes to 1. So this one here, however, your A is 3, your B is 1, your C is 10. So if you put those values into the quadratic formula, you end up with a negative 119 underneath the square root. Now, that means there's no real solutions, but it's not asking for whether they're real or not. You can use the complex number stuff you learned about. In order to turn this into something you can continue working with, you could think of this as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 19, but that's the same thing as just moving an I to the outside of the radical and then making what's underneath the radical positive. So you're going to have negative 1/6, which is about negative 0.16, repeating negative 0.17. You're also going to have the square root of 119 over 6 being multiplied to I, and you're going to have that being either added or subtracted. So you're going to have a negative 0.17 minus 1.82 I, because that's what square root of 119 over 6 is. It's about 1.82. Or you're going to have negative 0.17 plus 1.82 times I. And that's how you'd have to write the number. That's the whole number. You can't combine any terms here because this is the real, that's imaginary, this is the real, that's imaginary. But that is the end of this example, and that is the end of this video. If you have any additional questions, please make sure to bring them up during class.